Hey, friend, welcome to the podcast. You Are Significant, the podcast where you will hear real stories from real people, and we will get down into the truths of your own significance. You were created on purpose for a purpose with seeds of greatness inside of you. Now, let's get down to it. Welcome to You Are Significant. I'm so excited that today Steffanie Harrison is joining me from Tennessee. And I'm so excited because we are doing some neurological training
Mhm,
together and
mhm,
letting God program emotions into us that we might have forgotten about. I know for me, it
mm,
has been a totally different experience and so effective. And I just praise God for that.
amen. Same.
So, I want to share with you Stephanie's bio. Stephanie is a visionary entrepreneur, children's author, and founder of Glamp Haven, a boutique glamping experience rooted in creativity, family connection, and faith. Known
Mhm,
for her whimsical storytelling and innovative family experiences, she created Teddy Goes Glamping, a beloved children's book that inspires adventure and imagination. Stephanie also co founded the Busy Box Shop with her daughter, sparking curiosity through sensory play and educational themes. A dedicated homeschooling mom and community builder, she pours passion into every project, from
mhm,
theme TP parties to interactive language workbooks, while encouraging others to transform ordinary moments into lifelong memories.
mm.
So excited to have you with us today, Stephanie.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad God worked out the timing.
Mhm.
And so tell us a little bit more about what led you to begin the glamping experiences.
Well, we were just talking about that peace, that quietness, just before our podcast began, and that's honestly what happened. Was there's so much excitement that goes on through the day. There's so many sports, so many different things that we participate in, and so when we went camping, um, it was just a completely different experience for me. It was, and it wasn't like camping, because camping is, like the word camping, like, just automatically triggers people and they think work.
Right.
And it
And
is work.
sweating and no hair dryer, no shower.
All the things, and it is work, but the goodness that you get from the nature and like, just being away from all the busyness and the hustle and bustle, and that you actually start, like, investing in each other, the people that you've brought with you,
Mhm.
and you just realize, like, how important that is. And so, because when I thought of camping, I would always think it's work. And so I just wanted to create something that people could just get to, like, the center of the Oreo, the good stuff, like the cream, and not have to deal with opening the package and going to buy it, and, wrestle with the all the stuff. I just wanted to go ahead and give it to them and be like, here is the goodness, because creating memories is, like, my favorite thing. And when we have those rich memories that we can pull from our bank, and go,
Mhm.
when we're in those times of trouble, and we can access those good memories that we had, that joy attached to, then we can recreate those moments. So
Mhm. Did you camp growing up as a kid?
absolutely not. Absolutely not. My mother, is very, and I love this about her. She owned a gigantic corporate events company, and she did everything to the nines. Everything was super glam, super beautiful. And that's why I have a glamping business, because everything that we have is very plush. It's thought it's thought through, all of your utensils, everything. I just want it to be simple. Like I want you to be, and to the point where we created a blog too, just to help you with like recipes and like activities and anything that we can learn, we want to share because we want to make your trip better and better and better because we want you to spend time with your family. That's the most important thing to
Mhm.
us. And so we want to try to give that away in as pretty of a bow as we can so that people are attracted to it, right? Like if I say, hey,
Mhm.
here's you a tent. I'm going to rent you this tent right here. And you're going to have to go, put a tarp down and you're going to have to put some stakes in the ground and you're going to have to do all this stuff. And then you might not get a cozy night's sleep because you're on the hard ground. I mean, just all the things that might deter you from actually really getting to access that joy, because that's what
Mhm.
we're wanting to do is we're wanting to be in that creative zone. And if
Yes,
we're in anger and frustration because we're trying to getting this or doing this or whatever it is and we're not communicating
make something
effectively.
happen. Mhm.
Exactly. We're angry, I mean there's a t-shirt that says like, forgive me for what I say when I was backing up the camper, and it's like, and it's like, well, I want you to just not feel those things,
Mhm.
and I also believe that, that's kind of the service mindset. I didn't really realize that that's really what I'm about. Like I love serving because I get blessed on the other end of it. People come back to me and say, "Oh my gosh, guess what I did?" Or, the little kids are my favorite because I always do all these things for my children and their friends so then I can kind
Mhm.
of test it out. And to have the kids say to me, "That was the best day of my life."
Yes,
Me, like, it fills
yes.
my tank, I mean, it's work, but I'm like, "Next time we could do it this way, and it could be easier?" So it's just a matter of figuring that out and knowing what the goodness is, right? Because the first time
Mhm.
we went camping, we didn't access joy immediately. You know? There was a lot of things too, because I didn't grow up camping. My husband, though, on the other hand, absolutely did, and so it was so beautiful that he already had that perspective and that he could come in and share all of his knowledge from when he was growing up to make our trip easier. So,
Mhm.
and then we want to do it more often because it's not so hard. And then, so I just believe, and not all of us really understand because, like, when I say camping, people are like, ew. So my goal, and that was why I wrote Teddy Goes Glamping, was to explain to people like it doesn't really have to be this way, you know?
I love that you do a lot of indoor experiences too, where
Hmm.
it's not even like camping outside, it's bringing all your fun things in and creating something very memorable for
Hmm.
kids or adults or families
Right.
inside.
Right.
So, I love that you use your imagination. So, can you tell us just a little bit more about what growing up for you was like and
Mm.
that's made you
Yes.
treasure making memories and families making memories?
My goodness. My mom and my dad really honestly had no idea what they were doing and the goodness that they were going to give me. I wasn't going to see it as a child. I was going to wait until I was older and I had kids, and then I was going to go, wait a second. I really kind of understand. And so part of my journey has been rewriting all of my memories and trying to understand because I was at home a lot taking care of my brother, but what a blessing it was that my parents were like, "0 internet, 0 television. Here's you 10 acres with a creek on it. You can explore, and I'm gonna put you in the safest little town that you can possibly be in. So you can ride your bike while we're not there because they were entrepreneurs, and so they were very busy building businesses. And so I just went and I'm doing those same things as a homeschool mom with my kids now. We're walking up the creek yesterday and I'm pointing out stones and doing these different activities with the kids that I was doing when I was 8 years old. And I
Mhm,
didn't realize that my mother and my father, by creating that safe space where I wasn't angry or frustrated or those feelings are what, and I wasn't in survival mode. I wasn't being abused or anything like that. I was actually safe. So access that creativity in my brain. And as an adult, I think, because I looked at these overwhelming statistics that, like 92% of people are test as a genius in kindergarten.
Mhm.
And so God created us all, equally and uniquely, right? And so,
Mhm.
but we decide what things of the world, because it's a fallen, broken world, that we're going to take on and carry with us, and what we're going to let go. And so, as an adult, we are in the program trying to figure out, how do we get into that creativity? How do we get rid of these emotions? That's what it's about. It's about, when we create things, they not only help other people and benefit other people, but they make us feel like a sense of gratitude and happiness and joy, because we were able to give back in a way. And I think that, our creator designed us that way. We
Mhm.
get so much joy in doing the things that benefit others, and that would make sense to me, right? Because God is
Yes.
about all of us. He loves all of us. So, yeah,
It sounds
he
like
it
you
was
had a great childhood where you were spending a lot of time with your brother, and even though you weren't camping, you were getting to be outside and
exactly.
explore, and so that just led you to appreciate nature and
Mhm.
nature with your
Mhm.
own kids,
Of course.
and, want to take the hardship part out of those experiences when people do want to go camp and stay together
Mhm.
outside for longer periods of time and do it in a way that's really plush and
Right.
everything's
That's
provided.
inviting.
So
Right, and
what's
that's
one
a
of your
way that I
favorite experiences that you have been able to help someone enjoy? Tell us, like, what's your
mm.
favorite one? Can you describe it?
So I do have to say, though, that I do have to point out one thing in my childhood that was
Yeah.
super awesome. Even though my family, like, we were left alone to explore, my mom would always create these crazy experiences. Like, we would go on a cruise, or we would go to Disney, and we didn't have a lot of money, but they planned these experiences out. And so every time that they were with us and they were involved with us and we spent time together, it was a very rich experience.
Mhm.
We got to scuba dive, and my mom's she even though I didn't camp, my favorite thing growing up was that she sent me to camp.
Oh,
And so,
yeah.
just the activities and the togetherness. So as much as I'm a glamping company, I'm as just as much, I want you to experience those things. So I actually have the activities for the kids. And so, like you were saying, what would be a moment that you got people into joy? And so this is crazy,
Mhm.
but we have a facility near us, and they're one of our partners. Actually, it's called Rest Stop Ministry. They host women, and it's a program, and it's like, a space where they get to live there as well, who have been sex trafficked.
Mm.
And so these women, they come to them basically with so much, with a willingness, right? And
Mhm.
so each year they celebrate these women because they've, gone through the program. It's like an 18-month program, and some of them are a couple years out. Some of them are like 2, some of them are 6 years recovered from this lifestyle. And
Wow.
so they bring them back, once a year, and they do this beautiful thing where they put it's ball gowns, and they get to enjoy this. It's called a gala, and they just have an evening that's dedicated to them. And so
Mm.
we got yes. And so
Wow.
yes, is really, 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 really special. And so we had the idea, because one of our packages is a spa package. So I have all of the pedicure buckets, and we have all of the stuff that would go along with that. And we also do, like, DIY cookies, like where we decorate cookies, sugar cookies, and then there was one other thing. We had jewelry making there too, and so we brought the activities that we would do with the slumber party. We brought them to the girls, and we There was no expectation that anybody was going to wash anyone's feet. There was no expectation that, it was like, we're going to bring these things and as comfortable as anybody is, because these women have been severely betrayed by people that have loved them. So it's not always easy for them to just embrace new humans.
Mhm.
So there was absolutely no expectation when we went. It was just like, hey, we're going to come and we're going to show God's love. And I tell you what, within 3 minutes of us being there was feet washing, there
Wow.
was feet painting, there was finger painting, there was hugs, there were tears. And
Mm.
so I got blessed
Mm.
because of all of just the acceptance that they gave us. And yeah, we had the girl doing hair. So it was just like, we had like they were doing their hair for it, we're doing their nails for the gala. And the women that are there, not everybody, they don't know what they're getting into. The women that showed up to volunteer,
Mhm.
they just know this is a unique experience and I'll be involved. And then when they got there, everybody was all in. And it
Mhm.
was just the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow. What a blessing. And, like, I wouldn't have guessed that with the glamping business that you would be able to combine it with the
Right.
ministry and be able to have such a powerful impact, that really because of who you are, Stephanie, I think that that's really what the key is here is because of who you are and how you love, then it just connected you to a place where you could have
Mhm.
a lot of impact by what you
Thank
do.
you.
So tell us a little bit more about homeschooling your children and, um, tell us about the way that that has combined, like, being a woman who is homeschooling and an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of times people want to talk about work-life balance. I
Right,
personally
yeah.
think that's a myth. I think that even if
Mhm.
we aren't women who are entrepreneurs, often in the home there is not balance. Everybody's focused on grandma in the hospital, or everybody's focused on the wedding, or everybody's focused
Mhm.
on there's a funeral and we gotta get food ready for that. There's rarely, because of how life is, or is everything in balance where we're exercising 30 minutes and we're,
Right.
able to pray as long as we want to in the stillness. It's more
Mhm.
like, you
Mhm.
know, having our priorities and then mentally and emotionally and spiritually always looking to God to help us see, okay, today what needs strengthening rather than doing all the things all at once all the time.
Right.
So, share your thoughts on being a female entrepreneur and a homeschooling mom. How does that look and what are you going for in there?
So I think that, I'm just trying to create those rich memories. And
Mhm.
so homeschooling just made sense to me after, the nature, all of the things outside that I love. And it made sense for me. It didn't make sense right away. It took a couple of years to figure out financially how we could adjust, especially since I was am running the glamping business. So it's
Mhm.
we get a balance of because my attention has to be somewhere. So it might not the glam business might not be it's successful in my eyes, but it have hit the mile markers that it needs to,
Mhm.
or that it would if I allowed somebody else to explain what their mess is or what they see it as. So I see it as ever we decide to do I'm like so about this, then I will train, like a New Year's resolution. Like just okay, oh that didn't work. It must just not be who I am, or it must just not be part of the plan for me. And what I've learned though is that when God gives us that idea, those ideas don't come from us. We have a spirit that's inside of us speaking in our brain. And when we tune ourselves into it and He gives us those ideas, He's going to give us a way to figure it. Like He's
Mhm.
going to, balance it out for us. Now, is it going to look good? Because it didn't. It looked like a hot mess express. There was a lot of tears at the beginning, trying to figure out what this looked like. But I
Mhm.
can tell you that 8 months into the homeschool journey, it looks completely different than it did at the beginning of it.
Mhm.
And most people will allow that other voice in their head, even though God told me to homeschool, will allow
Yeah.
the other voice that says, maybe you're not cut out for this. This is just too much work. Like, this is too hard. Like, your personalities are too close. No. And those are exactly all the reasons that we need to.
Mhm.
Because when I look at who I want to be in 20 years from now, I don't only want to have something that is my family's creating together, which is the glamping business, and that they can take ownership and pride in it too. And I can teach them, about money through paying them, and we can save for college and retire and all these different added benefits. I can't get any of those if I don't trudge through the mud at the beginning. And if
Mhm.
I don't remember what my goal is. And, my
Mhm.
goal is to have a very close relationship with my family
Mhm.
and, and break those generational curses of whatever it is, all the brokenness. It's our responsibility to pick up those pieces and keep trying to put them together to make that beautiful masterpiece in our entire family line, right?
Mhm.
And we just pick it up and we run
Exactly.
with it. It's like a
Well, 2
baton.
things come to mind as I'm listening to you share, and that is a lot of times we think we have to do it all by ourselves, whether it's our business or homeschooling or even taking care of our house. Like, we don't have to do it all by ourselves. I don't think when
Mhm.
we look at the Proverbs 31 woman, I don't think God intended that we do it alone. He
No.
intended as women that we have a community, that we create
Mhm.
a community, that we serve them by letting them serve in our community.
Right.
And so I just think about how she had maidservants. Those women needed a place to live,
They
a
did,
place to
yes.
serve. She
Mm.
fed them, she cared for them. She rose up while it was yet night and provided for them. Um,
Mhm.
and so when we look at the Proverbs 31 woman, she wasn't just by herself. She had self care.
Right.
She took care of her husband. She took
Mhm.
care of her children. She
Mhm.
also took care of maidservants, which I believe would interpret to like employees or having a team
Right.
nowadays in the way
Of
we
course.
structure things. And then she
Mhm.
also looked to how she could help in her immediate community because she looked to the poor and needy and helped them. And then it says she gathered her food from afar. So she even went off afar and created opportunity there where people
Mhm.
could serve her, and then she reciprocated it back. And
Right.
so when we look at that for ourselves as business women in business and who have a family, it's not gonna be perfect all the time, right? One of the things I did
Mm-mm.
with my kids, because 'cause I'm a homeschool mom too, is we did not have to do everything on the day. We
Right.
would adjust. So,
Of
like, if
course.
somebody's
Mhm.
birthday was on Thursday, it might be the weekend or even just sometime in the month that we were going to
Right.
really celebrate. Of course, on that day, we were like, "I love you, happy birthday," hug.
Mhm.
But, like, the celebration didn't have to be on that day as far as, like, going to a restaurant, or whatever we were gonna do, having a party with friends over. So I think sometimes as women, we put a lot of pressure on ourself of what perfect is, and
Mhm.
if we're willing to adjust our expectations and those
Mm.
around us are, and we teach our
Mhm.
children that, then there's so much more joy because there's grace. And
course,
I think
yes,
for them, because I have 3 daughters, and they're still learning this as young adults,
of course.
um, but as they grow and mature and realize, like, okay, there is like, grace is better,
Mhm,
because if I
mhm,
put all these harsh expectations on myself that things especially in the South, right? Because some of the Southern ways are a super high standard, like, it's got to be perfect or it's a complete failure. There's, like, no in between.
mhm,
So being having grace that like, "Hey, this is beautiful," and beautiful can be like wildflowers, in a vase on a like my daughter has done, events where she did outdoor picnics.
mm,
And, that can look different ways, right? Where it's just, like, more simple and more, naturalistic, or it could be, like, more fancy.
mm.
And so, I think our expectations can be adjusted like that as well. And so what are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree with you, and I'm in the South,
Mm,
and really interesting people are because my one of my favorite scriptures is Matthew 34 because out of someone's mouth, their heart. And
mhm,
typically people will pick out things that they out in other people. So as because I struggle with perfectionism, like
mm,
really bad. And it would deter me, just like this whole business. Like if I mean, there were so many different issues that we had when we first started renting because you've got trailers and hitches and electronics and got multiple use all these different things that can go wrong and sometimes that make happy glampers. But if I keep going and I figure those issues out and I don't say, well, it's just not need to go, this place for this person because no, no. I need to recognize that this is a process. Like that Proverbs 31 woman. The
mhm,
beautiful thing is that passage is not written about her as a 22 woman. It's not. It's written about her as a seasoned woman following the Lord, listening to what he says and forgiving. Because when we don't forgive each other and we don't ask for forgiveness, we are living under a curse. We are. And
mm,
so when we open up and we allow that person hurt me or hurt you or hurt whoever, we extend them that grace that you're talking about. We say, you know what? I'm going to be curious instead of judgmental. You know what I mean? Like, why? Why are you doing this the way that you are? Because you know what? Way because I have a different perspective. But once we talk to that person, one of my favorite things is to hate someone up close. Because once you know, it's easy to hate them in traffic. Hell, it's easy to jump out and give them a old 1, 2. It would be a little bit harder to pull over and say, "Can I pray for you? What's going on? What do you need?
mhm,
What's happening in your life?" Instead we just and then that will show us how we respond to people. That's going to show us what's inside of us.
mhm,
And so that's been, I think, the biggest journey for me is just getting comfortable with reading scripture, my Bible, because that's what keeps me in line. And I can't make some that book. I know how good it is, but if I keep beating it over your head and well, it says this, it says that, it's never going to get you to read it. And
right.
you will never know the character of God unless you do, because He's love, and I'm not always love. And I'm so thankful that you said that about me. And every day I was thinking today, I'm like, what joy comes in the morning. You know where it says that in the Bible? Things, that he's so repetitious with everything that he says because we
Mhm,
forget. We have a new slate in the morning, a new opportunity to opportunity to right those wrongs and to not continue walking in them because we We can't create. And what we do create when we're in anger, what do we create? We create a whole hot mess.
Mhm.
I was explaining to my brother, my son the other day. He got angry and he chunked a rock down at the ground. Brother. And I said, "Son, let me tell you, you got change. You might not see it as that, but if you do, then you'll understand that bitterness, that anger, it lives inside of you and it caused you to do something that could have been, I don't know if I could walk in the forgiveness at this moment that you would need if had you hurt your brother that way. I don't know that I could. I don't know that I'm at that place in my Christian walk." And so if we can all understand that those are all like second chances,
Mhm.
every time that that rock misses his head and hits his leg, that we acted out in anger, because that's really what it is. You didn't act the way that you wanted to, son.
Mhm.
You wouldn't still be bitter about this, and that's the same way with me in my life. I'm only bitter about the things that I misbehaved to in, you
Mm.
know? So when
Mhm.
I don't act the
Because
way
of
that
the conviction,
because
the
of the
conviction,
conviction.
and learning to come into obedience, and when we resist
Mhm.
obedience, then that can create bitterness, and
And it
often
creates
the
distance.
obedience is the forgiveness step, like, I need to
Mhm.
forgive, I need to be compassionate, I need to put myself in their shoes, like, how would I have responded in the same
Right.
situation? And when we do that, then a lot of times we can find it in our heart to
Mhm.
forgive and give them a second chance. So I wanted to talk about your book as we wrap up. Um, I'm so
Thank you.
excited about this book. It is so cute.
Thank
It is
you.
Lamp Haven presents Teddy Goes Glamping, and it's written by you, Steffanie
Mm.
Harrison. And I love the little girl on the front.
So
And
cute.
I think that's the second thing when you were talking earlier about, and in this vein of conversation of combining business and family, and you're talking about teaching your children about money and how to save, but also
Mhm.
you recognized your daughter through this book. So tell us a little bit more about your book.
Well, originally, I'm going to tell you that it was not my idea to write specifically about my sweet town, Mount Juliet. Okay. It's so funny, right? Because that should have been my first, and the original character was not my daughter, Addison. So it was interesting how the book evolved because I connected it with a purpose. I was like, "What is really my goal?" Well, I really would love for people to know about how beautiful Mount Juliet, Tennessee is, just a hop, skip, and a jump 20 minutes from Nashville, right in between 2 lakes, and it's just so beautiful. So let's actually place the story there, and let's get my daughter involved somehow. I don't, because, she's was homeschooling behind me, and I'm thinking, and honestly, I had no idea that doing that, or that creating this, oh, first of all, I didn't know how, of course. No one does at first when they have the idea. No one knows how to do it. You just have an idea.
Mhm.
And then stuff starts happening, and you'll gain access to the tools that you need. And like, I do draw. I draw, but I do not draw like the illustrator that I found that drew Teddy Goes Glamping. I love it. And he's
Thank
just
you.
he drew so sweet. And it was,
Mhm.
it was a process, right? It's not like something that just comes together immediately. But through the process, my daughter has started writing her own little stories about her and Teddy, and she has created this company called the Busy Box Shop. And she likes to fidget. We both are our struggle is anxiety, and so we like to have something to just tangible that we can take our mind off of whatever it is. And she just created these little themed boxes with stuff in it, with sand and stuff. And then she's like, "I want to teach people, about nature and about all the things." And so she started writing her own little stories to go in the boxes too. And so it's funny, and it's really cool, Miss Darlene, because so many people like that have gotten the book are reading to their grandbabies.
Mhm.
And I would okay, I never, I'm just like in my brain, I'm like, and I'll tell you exactly what gave me the idea was I went to the Billy Goat Cafe, which is right around the corner, and there is this wonderful young man that figured out how to buy it, and he published a book. And
Wow.
it was yes, and it was about his company basically, but what like not really his company, but like his retreat that he does. It's
Mhm.
called Rise Up Retreat, and it was about this little dinosaur and, it all the obstacles and stuff, and then it explained, and I was like, "You know what? If he can do it, I can do it," right? Because we're all
Mhm.
the same species. So I decided I was gonna do it, and because I'm grown, I figured I would be able to I probably already have some of those resources in and around me. So the book probably took 90 days instead of a couple years, but we've been waiting since we were 8 years old because I've been writing stories since I was little. So, but, and just and it just happened and it's like, wow. And then I didn't realize on the other side of it, and I don't think any of us do, the blessings that will follow once we are obedient to whatever that
Mhm.
idea is.
Mm. So what are you thinking of as you say that? Have you had other people share their story with you, or what kind of things have come fruit you're already seeing? Because this is
Mm,
a new book. You
very
just
new.
published
Mhm.
it, what, a couple of weeks ago or a month? How long?
Mhm. Mhm.
Pretty recent.
Yeah, it's really
Mm.
recent. I was gonna say it probably was February, so February, March. Wow,
Okay.
it has yes,
Maybe
so it has
60 days or so, 60.
mhm.
Well, so what kind of fruit are you seeing from obeying God and following through where you didn't know what to do? And I love
Mhm.
stories like that because it reminds me of Abraham, where God
Right.
told him to get up, which I mean, wow, get up, walk, bring your whole family, your flocks and herds, and go to a land that I will show you. Like, I'm not telling you ahead of time. You just got to get
Right.
up and
Mhm.
like, back then, family was your security. Like,
Mhm.
you could die, right? You
Right.
just get up and walk
Right.
away. So, you got up and wrote
Right.
this book
Yes.
in obedience, never having written a book, not knowing
Mm-mm.
how you were gonna finish the project, but you did, and it's published, and there's
And
always blessings that comes from
always.
obedience that we cannot anticipate ahead of time until
Mm-mm.
we've done the thing. So
Yes. And maybe one of the biggest fruit that well, there's 2. So, my next door neighbor who we've adopted as our nana, my kids don't know her as anything else. She bought so many copies of the book. And then she has a friend who is uh, shut in, is kind of like someone who lives at home by themselves and doesn't have the means to be able to like grocery shop and things like that because of, physical or whatever situation. So she actually cares for our nana as a caregiver to another lady, and she purchased the book too. And so they gave them to their grandkids and actually needed more. And then I got to sign all of them. Like I got to write everybody a really encouraging message. And it's just, it's one of those things. Well, that's what authors do is they sign their books, but like I'm signing my book. And then the second thing that I knew, I was like, this is exactly why I had to write this book because exactly why Brian, he wrote his book, so I wrote my book. Well, guess what? My sweet friend Melissa is coming out with her book. And she's like,
oh,
yes. And
mm.
so it's almost like
You've
I
inspired
needed
someone else to share their story.
mhm, mhm. And then the cool thing is we already have another one in the pipeline. We are going to share the gospel. We are going to do Teddy goes Teddy Glamping in the Gospel is
Glamping in
the
the
name of the next book.
gospel.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh, how neat. Oh, love it. Well, as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you your advice, and what advice would you give to women who have big dreams but felt
Mm.
overwhelmed by the demands of motherhood, business, or even just everyday life?
Thank you for asking that because I really want to answer this. I think that just like you and I, Darlene, we got to go get access our 8-year-old self, go find some time where we can just sit down and dream. When do we stop dreaming?
Mhm.
And then capture those dreams, capture them. Just, and then like we are learning now in our class, put it on your calendar. If you want to, run, if you want to get into, let's use that as an example. You want to be healthier.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that you know how to do is you have a pair of tennis shoes and you already have some equipment so you can start running. Well,
Mhm.
then the next thing would be is to figure out, okay, what's realistic for me to begin with so that you don't over get crazy with your goal and you go, well, if I give myself an 8-week plan, I can sign up for that 5K. And then you can break it down and you can get a plan because somebody else has already ran a 5K,
Mhm.
and so you can get a plan of what you need to do so that when you run that 5K, you're not just signing up for a race and just trying to go out there and run 3.1 miles. No, you actually do it with purpose,
Mhm.
and you have a time that you're proud of, because you've been practicing. And then once you crush that goal and you've given yourself some confidence that you can do it, go do it again. Go do something else. And I am such a big believer that whenever we are given something, whatever it is, I don't care what it is, it multiplies. So we have to be careful with what we want to take because if it's bitterness, it's going to multiply. If it's joy, it's going to multiply. And if
Mhm.
your dream is to write a book, go write a book because guess what else is going to happen? You're probably going to write more. You know what I mean? And so that's why I
You
knew
may
I was like, I
inspire
need to
someone else to write their book.
or yes,
It
and that
multiplied.
too. But
Mhm.
whatever I want, if I just go ahead and figure it out that first time, I'll
Mhm.
be able to recreate it. Sorry,
Mhm.
we have a carpenter bee that's really enjoying himself over there. So,
I can't hear it. You're
okay,
good.
good. Okay, good.
Are you okay? Because I know that can be nerve-wracking
I'm
when you hear a bee.
totally, I'm fine. He's just, yeah. I mean, I'm just like, I don't want it. Yeah, he's loud.
He's not interested in you, he once would.
Yes, yes, he does.
Oh, well,
Exactly.
that's just such a beautiful thought, and I think of Brian, who you saw him write his book, and now really he's multiplied because you and your friend have both,
Mhm, mhm,
written a book.
mhm,
So that's true
mhm.
multiplication there. So
Mm,
it's so amazing how when we obey the calling of those seeds of greatness God has planted inside of us, that we really do grow in our significance and that it's not just about us, it's about
mm-mm.
all those that are in the path, those that we
Mhm.
may not have even met yet that will
Right.
be influenced and impacted. Because who knows who may read this book and hear this podcast
Mm.
and decide, you know what, I've always wanted to write a book, and now I believe I can.
Or I wanna start a podcast, and now I feel like I can because I feel like you're doing that to me. I love
Mhm,
how God has strategically placed us in an appointment to, and we got it on our calendar because that's the next biggest thing, guys, is like whenever we wanna do anything, we have to put it in our calendar, and then we have to plan our work and work our plan,
and set
and then get better
boundaries
at it and
around
set
it,
boundaries
which can be
around
hard,
it.
but it's so worth it.
We
Thank
have to
you
believe
so much for
ourselves.
joining me today,
Yes.
Stephanie. This time has gone so fast, and I'm excited to have you on again so we can talk more. And as you continue to create and touch
Mhm.
lives, I know there's going to be more stories to share of significance.
And thank you for you trying pulling out the significance in us
Mm,
because we do need to be reminded that, Darlene. And so we appreciate your step in pouring into us, with all your wisdom that you have you've raised the kids. You've done the thing. So
mhm.
thank you for giving back. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to You Are Significant. I hope this episode inspired you to embrace your own God given purpose. If this episode inspired you and blessed you, would you please share it out with a friend who needs to be reminded of their own significance? And remember to hit subscribe. Until next time, remember to walk in faith, find the joy, and stand in your significance.